The night air was sharp with the smell of smoke before Daniel even saw the glow. He had been walking the empty street, his blanket wrapped around him, searching for a dry spot to rest. The alleys were too damp, the park benches already coated with frost. He was tired, his stomach hollow, his head heavy with the weight of another day forgotten by the world. Then he smelled at burning wood, acrid plastic, the unmistakable bite of fire. At first, he thought it was a chimney gone wrong. But then he turned the corner. Flames licked the second story of the Whitmore townhouse, a mansion of pale stone and wrought iron that stood proud among lesser houses. Smoke belched into the sky, curling into a monstrous hand that gripped the roof. Glass shattered above as heat cracked it from the inside. Crowd had gathered, screaming, but no one dared move closer. Daniel froze. Fire had a way of paralyzing even the strongest, reminding everyone how fragile they were. But above the roar of flame and the shouting, he heard a smaller, sharper sound. A cry, a child's cry. His eyes shot upward. Through the smoke, a tiny figure clung to the balcony railing. Girl no more than 8 or 9, her face streaked with soot and terror. Her mouth opened in a scream that barely pierced the chaos. Daniel's body moved before his mind had the chance to think. He dropped his blanket, sprinted across the street, and shoved past the bystanders. "There's a girl up there," he shouted, though everyone could see. The crowd parted, but not one person followed. Fear had glued their feet to the ground. The front door was already aflame, black smoke curling from the hinges. Daniel knew he had no chance that way. His eyes darted across the facade, searching. The balcony's iron railing wasn't far from a drain pipe, old but sturdy looking. His heart hammered. It was a fool's climb, but there was no time to debate. He leaped, hands gripping the icy pipe. His fingers screamed against the cold metal, but he pulled himself upward, boots scraping against the wall. Smoke stung his eyes. Ash fluttered down like snow. With every move, the heat grew more brutal, baking his skin even from this distance. The girl coughed, choking. She saw him now, eyes wide with something between hope and terror. "Don't move," Daniel shouted, though his own lungs fought for breath. Hand over hand he climbed, his muscles trembling. The crowd gasped below. Some shouted warnings, others prayers. Daniel ignored them, reached the balcony, swung one leg over the railing, and grabbed the girl. She clung to him desperately, her small hands clawing at his coat. "It's okay," he said, coughing. "I've got you." Behind them, the window exploded outward, flames reaching for them like angry spirits. Heat seared his back. He had to move. The drainpipe groaned under their combined weight as he began the descent. The girl whimpered against his shoulder. Daniel clenched his teeth, muscles burning. Every inch downward, a battle between gravity and desperation. The pipe rattled, threatening to give way. Finally, his boots hit the ground. The crowd erupted in shouts and cheers, but they blurred into white noise. Daniel crouched, setting the girl down. She coughed violently, eyes streaming. He wiped soot from her face with his sleeve. But then the cheers turned to something else. Murmurs, gasps, fingers pointing. From the front of the crowd, a woman in an evening gown burst through. Her hair was undone, her makeup streaked, her eyes wide with panic. She sprinted toward the girl, her diamond necklace glittering in the firelight. "My baby," she cried, falling to her knees, pulling the child into her arms. The girl sobbed into her mother's chest. The woman's head snapped up, eyes narrowing on Daniel. And in that moment, gratitude did not fill her gaze. Fear did. "You," she hissed, clutching her daughter tighter. "What were you doing with her? Were you trying to take her?" Daniel staggered back, stunned. "No, I pulled her from the fire, liar," she screamed. "You filthy liar. I saw you holding her." The crowd shifted, unease rippling like a wave. Whispers rose. Was he saving her? Was he something else? A few men stepped closer, faces twisted with suspicion. Daniel raised his hands, palms open. "I heard her screaming. I climbed up. Ask her. Ask your daughter." But the girl was too shaken to speak. She buried her face deeper into her mother's gown, trembling. To her, words were lost in the smoke, still clawing her lungs. The mother's eyes blazed. "Police!" she shrieked. "Someone called the police." Daniel's stomach dropped. After all he'd done, risking his life, carrying her child out of the flames, They thought he was a kidnapper, a criminal. Two men grabbed his arms. Daniel didn't resist, too shocked to fight. Wait, please, you don't understand. Sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights painted the snow. When the police car screeched to a halt, the mother rushed forward. "Officer, arrest him! He tried to take my daughter." The officer frowned, looking from the soot-covered girl to Daniel's ragged clothes, to the burning house behind them. "Is this true?" he asked cautiously. Daniel shook his head violently. "I saved Hai, pulled her off the balcony." The officer squinted. The drain pipes still rattled from the climb. The balcony above was scorched black. Slowly, the crowd began to murmur, again confused, uncertain. But the mother's voice cut sharper. "I want him in handcuffs now." The officer hesitated. Daniel's heart pounded. He felt the weight of every year on the street, every sideways glance, every accusation that came before evidence. He knew how this looked. A homeless man with a rich woman's daughter in his arms. The handcuffs clicked cold around his wrists. And just like that, the man who had risked everything to save a child found himself shoved into the back of a squad car. The fire's glow fading behind him as the crowd whispered into the night. The squad car jolted as it pulled away from the burning townhouse. Daniel sat hunched in the back, wrists bound, smoke still clinging to his clothes. The officer in the front said nothing, eyes fixed on the road, the radio hissing static. Daniel's chest ached not just from the smoke he had inhaled, but from the injustice of it. He had thrown himself into fire, and now he was treated like the criminal. At the station, the fluorescent lights stabbed his eyes. The handcuffs clinked as they shoved him into a chair in the interrogation room. Across from him sat a detective with weary eyes and a steaming cup of coffee. "So," the detective said, "tell me your side." Daniel's voice cracked as he spoke, but the words spilled in a steady stream. He told them how he'd smelled the smoke, seen the flames, heard the girl's screams. How he'd climbed the drain pipe, pulled her off the balcony, carried her down. How the crowd had cheered until the mother appeared and turned cheers into accusations. The detective scribbled notes, expression unreadable. "You expect me to believe a homeless man risked his life for a stranger's kid, then didn't try to run when accused?" "Yes," Daniel said firmly, "because it's true." The detective studied him for a long moment. Then he leaned back. "We'll need to verify. Till then, you stay here." Hours dragged. Daniel sat in the holding cell, head bowed, lungs burning. He replayed the fire in his mind, the girl's terrified eyes, the heat clawing his back, the cheers that had turned to gears. He wondered if honesty ever mattered in a world where appearances judged first. Then, footsteps. The detective returned, accompanied by another officer. His face was different, now tighter, almost regretful. The fire marshal confirmed the balcony collapse. He said, "Neighbors saw you climb the pipe, and—" he hesitated, glancing at Daniel. "The girl just woke up in the hospital. She told her mother the truth. She said you saved her." Daniel closed his eyes, relief crashing over him. "So you believe me?" The detective unlocked the cell. "You do, you're free to go." Free. But Daniel had nowhere to go. He shuffled outside into the morning light, the city damp with melted snow. His blanket was gone, lost at the fire. His body trembled from exhaustion, yet something had shifted. The truth was out. He thought that would be the end of it, but the story did not stay buried. The next day, headlines screamed, "Homeless man saves child from blaze." Photos showed the fire's wreckage, the blackened balcony, the drain pipe still scarred. The city that had ignored him now spoke his name with awe. Daniel read none of it. He had no paper, no phone, but he felt the stares. People approached differently now. Some offered coffee. Others pressed bills into his hands. He wasn't invisible anymore. And then, one evening, as he sat on the steps of the church, a sleek car pulled up. Out stepped Eleanor Whitmore, the mother. Her eyes were red, not from smoke, but from shame. She approached slowly, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Daniel stiffened. "Mr. Hayes," she began, voice trembling, "I owe you an apology. No more than that." "I owe you my daughter's life." He said nothing, only stared. "When I saw you holding her," Eleanor continued, tears brimming, "I was blinded by fear. I thought the worst. I accused the man who had just done what no one else dared. And for that, I am." Shamed. Her voice cracked. She looked smaller now, her wealth and pride stripped away. Please, can you forgive me? Daniel's throat tightened. Memories of the handcuffs, the suspicion, the cold cell surged. He wanted to turn away. But then he remembered the girl's tiny hands clinging to his coat, her coughing breaths against his shoulder. I sighed. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because she needed help. Eleanor nodded rapidly. I know, and I want to help you now. Please, let me. Daniel frowned. Why? Out of guilt. Out of gratitude, she said softly. And because my daughter keeps asking about you. She calls you her angel. The words hit him harder than any accusation. His eyes stung. For years, he had been nameless, faceless, dismissed. And now, to one child, he was something else entirely. Eleanor extended a hand. Come with me, just for a meal, just to talk. This time Daniel didn't refuse. The Whitmore home had been gutted by fire, but the family stayed in a hotel suite overlooking the city. Daniel sat at a polished table, a plate of food before him, too rich for his stomach to comprehend. Across from him, Eleanor's daughter beamed. You're the man who saved me, she whispered. Daniel smiled awkwardly. I just climbed. You were brave, she said, as if that explained everything.
Eleanor
Watched the exchange, her hand covering her mouth. When the girl was led to bed, she turned to Daniel. You don't have to go back to the street. I can arrange a room, a job, not charity payment for what you've done. Daniel hesitated. Pride battled hunger, distrust battled hope. But Eleanor's eyes were steady, not pitying. For the first time, he believed her. The weeks that followed changed everything. Daniel moved into a modest apartment paid for by Eleanor's foundation. He began working in community outreach, using his story to bridge the gap between the ignored and the privileged. He spoke at schools, shelters, even city halls. Each time, he said the same words. I wasn't a hero. I was just there, and I chose to act. Anyone could have, but sometimes anyone doesn't. So if you can act, the city listened. Donations poured into shelters. Fire drills were funded for low-income housing. Slowly, the streets became a little less cruel. Months later, Daniel walked past the charred remains of the townhouse. Construction crews hammered. Scaffolding reached skyward. Beside him, Eleanor stood quietly. It will be rebuilt, she said. Daniel nodded. So will I, she glanced at him, smiling faintly. He looked at the sky, clouds glowing with the promise of dawn. For the first time in years, the horizon felt like more than another cold night. It felt like a beginning.